Okay, let's talk about Will Davison. So, because I just talked about James Courtney, let's talk about Will Davison. Davo also started in 2006, and I think that he is one of the great drivers. Um, Look at his career. He started at Dick Johnson Racing. They didn't have the best situation there, but they made it work. And Will kept on getting better and better and better. Back in 2006, he actually consistently scored some top tens and showed that he can do it. A bit like Andre Heimgartner did in 2018. Like he had a pretty up and down year, and then at the end of the year actually started putting it together. And that happened with Will Davison in 2006. 2007, they had Jim Beam on as a sponsor, and he got a bunch of podiums. Didn't win a race, but he was getting a lot closer. And finished 10th in the championship. So he went from 19th 2006 to 10th in 2007 in his second year. And then they got podium at Bathurst. 2008, he wins races, he gets round wins, podiums, and fifth in the championship, beating James Courtney. So beating his fellow 2006 rookie. It's not something to be sniffed at, and no one thought that at the time either. So, a couple of the big teams come knocking. Will goes, yeah, sure, I'd actually love to drive a Holden Racing team, and he goes and he does it. And he beats Garth Tander. Not convincingly, but he came second in the championship, Garth came third. And so, like, Will actually had a bit of a distant shot at the championship that year, but we could probably say Garth had one too. That was the year that no, there are a few races that Whincup had issues. Whincup was a little bit crash happy in the early days, but Will did a very good job with HRT in 2009, and in 2010 the wheels started to fall off HRT, and Will seemed to have been the most affected in that situation. Garth came fifth in the championship. The results weren't quite as much there as they were before, but for Will, they were nowhere. It was depressing to watch it all come undone, and they just couldn't quite put it back together for him. So he ended up leaving at the end of the year, and FPR, Performance Racing, had an entry for him because Stephen Richards wasn't doing very well. So they went, alright, who can we get? Will Davison's having a shit time at HRT. He's still a good driver. Alright, hey Will, you want to drive FPR? Yeah, I'd love to drive FPR. So Will goes to FPR, and he does a good job. He's fast, he's in a good car with a great teammate. So, and towards the end of the year starts getting podiums, so it was a bit of a tough sort of year. 7th in the championship, and Frosty was what, third or something. Yeah, third 3 years in a row. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not sounding flash. Anyway, 2012, the title challenge year. In FPR, Will's on pole. He's winning races. He's challenging Jamie Whincup for the championship. He had the lead of the championship at one point in the first half of the year at Perth, and he lost it. And just couldn't quite keep up and finished fourth in the championship. A bit of a rough end to the year. Pole at Bathurst, right? It was a great year for him. 2013, Car of the Future. The FPR guys weren't quite as close as maybe they should have been. Frosty was on what, pole? Or was that SVG? I think Frosty was on pole. And No, hang on, maybe SVG was on pole and he bogged down. Yeah, that sounds right. Because the FBR cars just weren't quite fast enough. And so they got a couple of wins. I think the first win of the team that season was 2013. Oh, actually, I'm getting that wrong. It was Pukekohe. Yeah, Frosty got a win at Pukekohe in 2013. Alright. It wasn't great, but they were consistent. Get some top tens. It's not where we want to be, but we're getting some good results. So they just kept at it. And so Will was doing a good job getting podiums, and maybe was looking for different opportunities. And Erebus come knocking. Betty Clemenko says, "Hey, Will, want to drive a Mercedes AMG?" He goes, "Yeah." They haven't had a win yet. They haven't even had a podium yet. So he joins them. And he's teammates with Lee Holdsworth. The AMGs were not flash. They were good on their day, but their day didn't happen that often. Will Davison was definitely the one who dragged it into the top 10 the most, but Lee got the win. And Will got a podium, I think, in Townsville. 2015, and this was a long-term contract. This was like a 4-year contract that he had for Erebus Motorsport. So second year, 2015, he gets his own win at Perth. Because Lee got one in Winton in 2014, so Will got one in 2015 at Perth. And it's just one of those things where suddenly it worked out for them. The car wasn't great, and he had a rookie teammate, Nash Walsh. So that's just a bit frustrating for them. They'd sort of hit a bit of a dead end, and it was probably just costing them too much money to see if they could try and match the more established cars in Ford and Holden. So Will was sort of tired of being in that project team, and so he looked at his options, and Shane Van Gisbergen's actually leaving the Techno car, so there's a race winning car available. So Will goes, "Hey, can I drive?" Technico, we'd love to have you, Will. So 2016, Will gets regular in the top 10. And oh my god, I did not look well. 2016, Will was getting. Do I need to tell the whole fucking story of his career? 2016, they got a couple wins, a couple podiums, regular in the top 10. I think the situation with Techno at that stage was that they weren't upgrading the cars as much. They won Bathurst, that was good. 2017 comes around, they grabbed Campbell Little to be the manager. Was it a manager or the engineer? I think it was the engineer. And it just didn't work. He got top 10s, he was regular in the top 10s, he was good. And then they had the big crash at Tassie, and then something happened with the car at Phillip Island. There was a tyre failure on one of them. There was like a fan belt or something went wrong. So they had to retire the car. And well, he dragged into the top 10 plenty of times, but it just wasn't good anymore. The car wasn't good anymore. They had a test. Because they were a Queensland team, so they test Queensland Raceway. And Jonathan Webb says, "Oh yeah, we've changed a bunch of things." And then for the rest of the season, it's just tough. They weren't getting top 10s as much. They weren't anywhere. And they get to Bathurst and they qualify outside the top 10. and Webby sticks it in the fence at one point. And it's just like, oh, are you kidding me? And then it turns out, oh, they're thinking of getting rid of Will Davison. I'm thinking, why? He's doing such a good job. Why are you getting rid of him? He's the only reason this car looks even half decent half the time. And it's just, it was frustrating to see because then it just turned to another situation of boot the old guy out, put the new guy in. Not because he's not good, but because we just want some fresh blood. Because we're vampires. And that's what we do. And I don't get it. And apparently I'm just mucking around in my bed. Anyway. So Will is looking like he's out of a drive because Jack LeBrock's linked to the seat and he's bringing a little bit of money, not a lot. And I guess Woodstock weren't going to sponsor the car for the next year. So Will's pretty much looking like he's out in his ass. And at the same time, Lucas Dunbar Motorsport are falling to pieces because they run out of money and Phil Monday's looking at taking over. And so at the end of the year, they managed to put it all together, and they've bought a Ford Falcon for the 2018 season, and it was Cam Waters' 2017 Tigford car, Pro Drive car. That won Sandown that year, and Will was sort of linked in at the very end. Around Newcastle, that was people saying, "Oh, Will, you're joining 23 Red." He goes, "Am I?" And then a week after Newcastle, or a couple of days, it was announced, "Yep, we have signed Will Davis." Actually, no. So they announced the team on the weekend. Will wasn't confirmed until about a week later. So it was a very, very sort of last minute stuff. Like this stuff's usually sorted out a bit earlier. But, you know, maybe he was still under contract and technically didn't want to let him go because contractual obligations or something. And so Will's back in the game for 2018. He didn't manage to have a year off, but out of Techno into 23 Red in the Tickford car with technical assistance from Tickford. And it wasn't bad. The Falcon was struggling because the new Commodore came out with all its high downforce and everything, all the bits and pieces that created the parody saga started with the ZB. And, well, in recent years it started with the ZB. And so the Falcon wasn't the car to have. And Will got what, 8 top 10s? The same that he got in the Technico the previous year. So he did a pretty good job considering what he had. He beat half of the Tigford guys, so he knew he was doing a good job. Had a shootout appearance at Townsville, that was pretty good. And that was what I think that was all she wrote for 2018. 2019 he's part of the Tickford team properly because Tickford really couldn't run 4 cars without having a proper commercial program, and it was a bit of a stretch for them. So Will's in there. They've got 23 Red, Milwaukee Mustang, they got a Bottle Mustang, they got Monster Mustang, Super Cheap Mustang. Everyone's a great driver. Will Davison, Lee Holdsworth, Chaz Mostert, Cam Waters. So Ford gets their swing at the parody saga, and the Mustang is killing it, and anyone who's got one is capable of getting a podium, but it was struggle street for Lee Holdsworth, and I don't think Will Davison was doing amazingly, but he got top tens pretty much straight away. And at a couple of stages in the year, well, he got two podiums. He got second at Queensland and second at Tailem Bend. He would have won one of the races at Tailem Bend, but he had an airbox fire go out, so that was a bit of an issue for them at Tailem Bend. But definitely still had a shot. He wasn't better than Cam Waters, but he was still good. So yeah, and then come 2020, roll on. He had one of the best starts of the season that anyone had. He rocked up to Adelaide and he got fourth and fifth, and so he didn't win any podiums, but he was definitely in the mix for a good result. And after that, after Adelaide, they went to Albert Park and they had their run, and that was it. That was the last time for that year that Will Davison was in the 23 red car, because COVID hit, and then Milwaukee said, yeah, we can't really sponsor supercars anymore. 23 red went, alright, well, we're going to pull the pin then. And the car got sold, or the car was a Tickford car, but the entry was sold to Peter Adderton for the rest of the year, or rented or leased out to Peter Adderton to run James Courtney. And Will ended up in the Monster Mustang for Bathurst. And they got a podium, second. So that was a pretty special time for Will. And then, because of all that, because of how well he'd done that year, despite the limited amount of running he was able to do, Dick Johnson Racing come knocking because Scott McLaughlin's gone, and Fabian Coulthard's been given the boot. And so they've won an experienced driver and a young driver. So they got Anton coming in. And they say, hey, Will, you want to come back to Dick Johnson Racing? He says, yeah, of course I will. And then he's in there. He's getting podiums and he's getting top tens, and it's like good old days. Anton's the fast one. Will's the one that brings home the bacon every day. And did a solid job. And then you got 2022 comes along, and you think, okay, this is Anton's year. Anton's gonna steamroll Will. Nah, it didn't happen. Will starts breaking lap records with his pole positions and gets 3 race wins to Anton's 1, and is looking like a little chance at challenging SVG for the championship. There were a couple guys in the mix: Cam Waters, Chaz Mostert, and Will Davison looking at taking that reward. And Will Davison had the most poles of anyone until the very last round. And Cam Waters got it. Will had a shocker at Adelaide, and pretty disappointing end to an otherwise amazing year. And then we get to this year, and you think, all right, come on, Will. That year was so good. 2022 was amazing. You can't do that again. And yeah, you might be right. He hasn't had a pole position, but he's been so consistent. Just keeps on racking up those top tens. And he's 9th in the championship, and for a Mustang this year, that's so good. It's amazing. I managed to just put it all together and make it work. And he's just chilling. Like, it's not great, because it's not great for anyone who's a Ford driver at the moment. But he's doing such a good job. And I'm pretty sure they've already signed him for next year as well. They've gone, yep, Anton and Will are staying on for 2024. Don't come knocking on the doors. So Will Davison, he's good. Like, how do you get? Is he the same age as Frosty? Frosty's because James Courtney's 43. JC, oh, I've got to update PowerPoint presentation. I think Will's 41. He's doing a great job, and he's just had a baby this year. So hopefully the what do they say about there's a bit of a joke about drivers that have kids is that they lose a tenth or something like that per kid. It's not true. It's rubbish. But Will's doing a great job. He got a podium at Darwin, rocks up Townsville. It was a pretty messy day on Saturday. It was a disaster with the fuel. And then Sunday, what happened? I had an issue on Sunday, I think. And Anton won the race. Goody goody. And Will's just doing a good job.